In the rolling hills of the Cotswolds, where the ancient boundaries between Oxfordshire and Warwickshire blur, stands one of England's most mysterious stone circles. The Rollright Stones have watched over these fields for over 4,000 years, but they're wrapped in a legend that's far more recent and far more sinister. According to local folklore, these aren't just prehistoric monuments. They're a king and his army, frozen in stone by a witch's curse, waiting for the day they might march again. The name itself hints at their story. Rollright possibly derives from Roller Landrit, the land rights of a man called Roller, but the stones themselves predate any recorded history, standing here since the Bronze Age, when Britain was a very different place. Today I'm exploring what makes this stone circle so different from the others across Britain, and why its legend has endured for centuries. The Rollright Stones actually consist of 3 separate monuments spread across this landscape. The main attraction, the main circle, the King's Men, holds around 70 stones, though locals say counting them is impossible. I tried. They're right. The stones are made of local Neolithic limestone, weathered by millennia into organic, almost sculptural shapes. Have you ever seen limestone after thousands of years of wind and rain? These stones look almost alive. About 400 yards to the southeast stand the Whispering Knights, the remains of a Neolithic burial chamber that's actually older than the main circle, dating back around 5,000 years. These 5 stones lean inward as if in conference, giving them their evocative name. And across the road to the northwest stands the solitary Kingstone, a single weathered monolith that's become the focal point of the legend. Archaeological evidence suggests this area was significant long before the stones were erected. There are traces of earlier wooden monuments and burial sites scattered throughout the region. What makes Rollright unusual among British stone circles? Its accessibility and the persistence of its folklore. While many ancient sites have lost their stories over time, Rollright's legend has not only survived, but grown stronger. The story goes that an ambitious king was marching south with his army, intent on conquering all of England. As they reached this hill, they encountered an old woman, a witch, who challenged him with a riddle. 7 long strides shalt thou take, and if Long Compton thou can't see, King of England thou shalt be. Long Compton is a village that lies just beyond the ridge. The king, confident in his destiny, took his 7 strides. But the curve of the hill blocked his view of the village. The witch then revealed her true power, transforming the king into a solitary Kingstone, his army into the stone circle, and his plotting generals into the Whispering Knights. This legend probably emerged in the medieval times when people needed explanations for these ancient monuments whose original purpose had been forgotten. Think about it. How do you explain massive stone circles when you have no written records of who built them or why? Similar transformation myths exist through Britain. The Merry Maidens in Cornwall, the 9 Ladies in Derbyshire. There's something deeply appealing about the idea that human ambition and hubris can be literally petrified, turned into a permanent warning. But what's interesting about the Rollright legend is how specific it is. The witch doesn't just turn people into stones. She creates a narrative scene, with the king standing apart from his men, and the treacherous generals frozen at the very moment of their conspiracy. Over the centuries, the Rollright Stones have accumulated layers of folklore that go far beyond the original transformation myth. The most persistent belief that the stones cannot be accurately numbered. Counting stones in a circle sounds simple, until you try it. Locals have long claimed that anyone attempting to tally the King's Men will get a different number each time, as if the stones move when no one is looking. This counting superstition appears in records going back to the 16th century. Some versions say that if you do manage to count them correctly, terrible luck will follow. Others claim that successfully counting them will break the spell and restore the king and his army to life. which might not be such a good thing for the rest of us. The stones were also believed to have healing properties. Sick children would be passed through gaps in the stones at midnight during a full moon. Women seeking fertility would touch the kingstone at dawn. These practices continued well into the 20th century. There were darker associations too. The isolated location made Rollright a natural gathering place for night walkers and cunning folk, those who practiced folk magic and herbalism. Like many ancient sites, Rollright has a reputation for cursing those who disturb it. The most famous story involves a 17th century farmer who tried to remove a fallen stone for bridge building. His oxen couldn't budge it, but when he finally managed to transport it, disaster struck. Crops failed, livestock died, family fell ill. Only returning the stone returned his fortunes. Similar tales followed through the centuries. A Victorian gentleman lost his eyesight within a month of chipping off a sample. Modern visitors report cars breaking down after taking stones as souvenirs, only starting again when the stones are returned. Whether you believe in curses or not, these stories have been remarkably effective at preserving the site. Even in our scientific age, Rollright continues to generate unexplained phenomena. Paranormal investigators regularly record unusual electromagnetic readings within the circle, often accompanied by sudden temperature drops. Whether these readings are natural or something more mysterious remains debated. But electronic equipment frequently malfunctions, and digital cameras sometimes produce strange light anomalies that don't appear to the naked eye. More intriguingly, acoustic specialists have recorded what they describe as whispering conversations near the Whispering Nights, though no visible people were present. When analysed, these recordings show speech patterns, but no decipherable words, as if the stones really were holding hushed consultations. Local hikers and campers occasionally report hearing the sound of marching feet late at night, though searches never reveal any source. Some have found what appear to be barefoot human footprints leading away from the circle and vanishing into the surrounding fields. One of the most unusual modern phenomena involves mobile phone behaviour. Many visitors report that their phones lose signal specifically within the circle, even when the surrounding area has good coverage. Whether this is due to some property of the stones themselves, or simply the area's topography, is unclear. But it adds to the sense that this is a place where normal rules don't quite apply. To understand why the Rollright legend has such power, we need to consider the historical context of this landscape. This area has been a borderland for centuries, originally between Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, later between medieval counties. Border regions often develop rich folklore because they're places where different cultures and beliefs meet and merge. The stones themselves were built during a period when Britain was experiencing significant social and religious changes. The transition from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age saw new burial practices, new technologies, and possibly new beliefs about death and the afterlife. The people who built Rollright were creating something that was meant to last forever, a permanent connection between the living and the dead. Medieval chroniclers sometimes recorded local legends alongside historical events, which is how some of these transformation myths may have been preserved. The story of the ambitious king might reflect real memories of ancient conflicts, transformed over generations of retelling into the supernatural tale we know today. The persistence of belief in the stone's power also reflects the deep human need to find meaning in landscapes. Even when we don't understand the original purpose of ancient monuments, we create new stories to explain their presence and importance. Today, the Rollright Stones attract thousands of visitors each year. Archaeologists, pagans, paranormal investigators, and curious tourists. The site is managed by the Rollright Trust, which works to balance public access with conservation needs. Unlike some ancient sites that feel isolated from modern life, Rollright sits right beside a country road, making it one of the most accessible stone circles in Britain. This accessibility has its drawbacks. The stones show signs of wear from countless hands touching them. The constant stream of visitors has eroded the surrounding ground. But it also means that the site remains a living part of local culture rather than a museum piece. Modern pagans and neo-druids regularly hold ceremonies at Rollright, particularly during the solstices and the equinoxes. While these practices aren't historically continuous with the original Bronze Age rituals, they represent a genuine attempt to reconnect with the site's spiritual significance. The stones have also found their way into popular culture, appearing in novels, TV shows and films as shorthand for ancient British mystery. This modern myth-making continues the process that began a millennia ago, each generation adding new layers of meaning to these silent sentinels. I have to tell you about something that happened during my research for this video. I'd visited the stones several times during daylight hours, but I wanted to experience them at dusk, that liminal time where boundary between day and night feels the thinnest. As the sun set behind the Kingstone, casting long shadows across the circle, I found myself unconsciously numbering the stones in the fading light. 75, 76, 77, but as I walked around again, trying to verify my count, I kept losing track. The strangest part wasn't the difficulty in counting, it was the growing certainty that I was being watched. Not by other visitors, the site was empty, but by something patient and ancient. The feeling was so strong that I turned around several times, expecting to see figures in the gathering darkness. Of course, there was nothing there, just the stones, standing in their eternal circle, keeping whatever secrets they've held for 4,000 years. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right through the circle, some say you can hear a whisper carried across the stones. Words lost in time, or something else entirely. So what are the Rollright Stones really? Archaeological evidence tells us they're Bronze Age ceremonial monuments, probably used for rituals connected to death, rebirth and the seasonal cycle. The legend of the Cursed King is almost certainly a medieval invention, created to explain monuments whose purpose had long been forgotten. But maybe that's not the whole story. The remarkable persistence of the belief in the stone's power, the continuing reports of unexplained phenomena, and the way they've inspired centuries of storytelling suggest that some places genuinely do accumulate a kind of significance that goes beyond their original purpose. Perhaps the real magic of Rollright isn't in the curse or the counting superstition, but in the way these stones continue to inspire wonder and caution after 4,000 years. They remind us that some mysteries are more powerful when they remain unsolved, and that the boundary between history and legend isn't always as clear as we might think. If you're planning to visit the Rollright Stones, they're easy to find, on the road between Chipping Norton and Long Compton. Yes, the same Long Compton from legend. There's a small parking area and a donation box to help with site maintenance. The stones are accessible year-round, though they're particularly atmospheric at dawn or dusk when the light creates deep shadows between the ancient monoliths. What do you think? Are the Rollright Stones just remarkable prehistoric monuments? Or is there something genuinely uncanny about this place? Have you visited the stone circles yourself and felt that sense of otherness that so many people describe? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration of British folklore and ancient mysteries, subscribe for more stories about the UK's most enigmatic places. Next time, I'll be investigating another Cotswolds mystery, the strange case of the Chipping Camden Wonder. And if you know of other stone circles or ancient sites with particularly compelling stories, drop them in the comments. Some of Britain's best stories are still waiting to be told. Thanks for watching.